Q&A with me, HG Tudor. Hello. Your opportunity to raise questions of me, about my world, things I like, things I dislike, about narcissism generally, about psychopathy generally. I'm taking the questions from the initial video. There are hundreds there, but if you have other ones and follow-up questions, just put them in the comments section to this video. I'll be diving in there as well and looking for those interesting questions that perhaps haven't been posed before. Now, on with the questions. Our opening question comes from Kimberly Porter. Have you ever tried ecstasy? I only bring it up because the feeling it gives you is of being deeply in love, and I wonder if that feeling can be elicited with drugs to a psychopath. It would explain to you why we empaths love to love and care for, that feeling you get making someone else happy. I have tried ecstasy. I have, in the past, used it on a number of occasions. What you probably want to know is, how did it make me feel? The simple answer is it made me want to dance and fuck. Did it make me feel deeply in love? No. Judith. HG, what a wonderful idea. Thank you. You're most welcome. Many of your adept followers of this channel have stated that they like the sound of your voice, as do I. Thank you. I was wondering whether you took singing lessons. No, I haven't, though. An interesting question. I can sing. It's sort of bass baritone in terms of depth, but I have not had singing lessons. It was part of my piano examinations when I was a young boy that I had to sing, and when I started those lessons, it was before my voice broke, and I used to sing in the school choir. And then, of course, when I was a teenager, my voice broke, and I still liked to sing. And thereafter, as an adult, I liked to sing. I have sung in some choirs also, but usually just in relation to my own singing to impress whoever I happen to be with, or even sometimes getting on the karaoke. Empress C. HG, are we ever going to get the truth out of you? You do, on a daily basis, because I explain to you the truth of the way that I think and function and the way that my kind operate. I give you the truth of my analyses of infamous and famous people. As I've explained in my superb video, The Truth, the Half-Truth, and Nowhere Near the Truth, there will be instances where a narcissist will utilize the truth as you understand it to be, because it serves our purposes also. One of the huge advantages of my anonymity is that I can tell you the truth. If I had to appear in front of you on screen using my real name, I wouldn't be able to tell you anywhere near the level of information that I have conveyed to you. By using a pseudonym, by not appearing on camera, the benefit you all get from that is that I can tell you the truth of what it is to be a narcissistic psychopath, to tell you the truth of the way that our kind function, and that is hugely valuable information for all of you. Patan, when you die, not for a long time yet of course, surely at that point people will access your office, computers and the contents of your safe, and will realize who you are, and might make it public. At that point, of course, being dead, you will neither know nor care. But does it challenge your control to think of it? Or have you considered how to deal with the event to prevent anything like that from happening? As you know, Patan, one such as I, with my awareness and insight, is that I look ahead, that I plan for the future, that I am calculated. There are a number of things that are already organized to occur in the event of my death, or if, for instance, I'm rendered particularly infirm. Steps have been put in place utilizing loyal individuals who will basically implement a protocol so that my interests are protected, my interests remain extended where that can be done, that there is money that will ensure that that is covered. So you're correct that the possibility of access to that material is a potential threat to my control, but I've thought about it. I've created a protocol and engaged the right people that will implement that protocol and can be relied upon to do so. There are also contingencies in the case of failure to do that, and therefore there is no risk associated with the access to my materials, etc. It is all taken care of. Burley D. How do you regard all of the empaths who listen to your work in order to learn more about themselves and perhaps heal from their narcissistic entanglements? I regard them as eminently sensible and exercising logic. Jade Leaf 1980. HG. Has Harry's wife ever attempted to silence you or threatened to dox you? And if so, how did you handle it? I have no direct knowledge of any attempt made to silence me or dox me by Harry's wife. If she has tried to do so, she may have attempted to do so without me knowing about it, but it clearly hasn't worked. There has never been any direct communication from her or her office, so to speak, in an attempt to silence me or issue threats to dox me. She can't dox me, she doesn't know who I am, and on what grounds would she seek to silence me? The fact is, there are those who think that she has done so in the past. She hasn't. The fact is that, for instance, when my channel came off air, some people believed that was at her behest. It wasn't. It suited people's agendas with regard to her behaviour to believe that that's what she'd done, because I'm a critic of hers. It wasn't. It was simply a case of copyright breaches, and that the relevant organisation that owned the copyright in the book became aware of the commentary that I did on Tom Bauer's Revenge, and that led to a copyright strikes, which then, because of the number of them that I had, resulted in the channel being taken down, although, of course, I managed to sort it out with the copyright owner, and the channel should not have been taken down. That was why it was reinstated. But it was nothing to do with Harry's wife, it was to do with the relevant organisation. MGM asks, favourite author, composer, and philosopher? With author, I would say it was probably a tie between Bret Easton Ellis, author of Damarama, American Psycho, Luna Park, and Ian Banks, the Scottish writer, who wrote Complicity, Crow Road, Wasp Factory, and such like, Walking on Glass. Composer, I'd have to say Handel. In terms of classical composer, I assume that's what you're asking about. And in terms of philosopher, that would be the English philosopher John Locke. Lene Scove. Since you advise people and must have experienced what pain other people suffer from the involvement with the narcissist, do you ever refrain from devaluing your intimate partner, primary source, or friend because you know what pain it causes? Short answer, no. I never refrain from the implementation of devaluation just because it's going to cause somebody else some pain. If they had done what they should have done and not threatened my control, they wouldn't have to suffer, would they? Therefore, they've brought it on themselves and have only themselves to blame. There are instances, of course, because I have a very high threshold on my ignited fury, that I may decide upon an alternative route with regard to my behaviour towards somebody. So there might be instances where devaluation is a possibility, but I determined that on this occasion I would not take such a step because it would be advantageous not to do so. So, for instance, the maintenance of the facade is a common instance where I might not engage in a particular devaluing behaviour at that point in time. What I do is I make a mental note and get them later. It might be also that it isn't possible to engage in the devaluation of that individual at that particular point in time. Again, mental note is made and I will get them later on. But I never, ever refrain from devaluation just because it's going to cause somebody some pain. On the contrary, the fact that it's going to cause them some pain makes it all the more delicious. Lena Grace. Would the general public be surprised by how many narcissists are right under their noses in their everyday lives? Yes, they would. As I have explained on previous occasions, Lena, there is anecdotally around 1 in 6 of the population that are narcissists. And the number of individuals that behave in that way are far more than people realize. And if they were to understand narcissism by accessing my work, not only would it enable them to understand more about the people around them, it would help them navigate their lives far more successfully. Burley D. Do you have the ability to abstain from seeking the prime aims when interacting with another person? In other words, can you choose not to view them as an appliance even for a short time? No. Everybody is an appliance to me. In a way, if you were able to see through my eyes, you wouldn't see me looking at people, you would see me looking at appliances that would be referenced with regard to where they sit within the prime aims. I see those people through that lens of the prime aims. Are they under control? To what extent are they under control? Are they threatening control? What their position is within the fuel matrix with regard to the provision of fuel? Are they useful for character traits? If so, which ones? What residual benefits can I get from them? That is how I see everybody. Of course, I'm aware. An unaware narcissist would see them in another way, but subconsciously be viewing them with regard to the prime aims. I, as an aware narcissistic psychopath, see the individuals purely through the lens of the prime aims. Charles Little. Mostly all people falling in love have a golden period in the beginning. What would you say is the difference between, say, normals and with normal and a narcissist? Well, Charles Little, this really goes back to a point that I've made before, that the behaviors of a narcissist, a narcissistic person, but not a narcissist, a normal and an empath, can be similar. For instance, all four could engage in physical violence. But it is the driver behind the behavior that is different. With a narcissist, the narcissist has the golden or bronze period, because the narcissism decrees that to be for the purposes of getting that person under control, drawing fuel from them, gaining character traits and residual benefits. Approaching in that manner makes it easier for them to ensnare them rather than being red of tooth and claw at the outset. For a normal person, or an empathic person, or even a narcissistic person that is not a narcissist, they have different drivers. They're not driven by the pursuit of the prime aims. They're not looking to control that person in the way that a narcissist does. They're not looking to extract fuel from them, character traits or residual benefits. And therefore the difference is the driver in the behavior. I've given an example in the past in respect of a narcissist, a narcissistic person and an empath asking a normal neighbour to look after their animals whilst they go on holiday, and each of them buys a bouquet of flowers to say thank you, so they all engage in similar behaviours. But I've explained that they have different drivers. The empath is driven by their empathic trait of decency and their emotional empathy because they recognise it's the right thing to do to say thank you for somebody looking after their animal. The narcissist is, of course, driven by the need to control, to draw fuel from the neighbour's response, and, of course, perhaps, with certain narcissists, to manage a facade of seeming like a good neighbour to the other neighbours in the locality. A narcissistic individual is driven by the fact that they recognise that it's the right thing to do, but they also recognise they're going to go away on holiday again, and therefore they want to butter up and keep the normal neighbour sweet, so that when they ask in 2 weeks' time, can you look after my pet tortoise again for 2 weeks, then that individual will say yes. So each of them buys flowers for the normal neighbour, but it's a different driver, and it's the same when it comes to the issue of falling in love. The narcissist gives the appearance of falling in love, but can't because we have no emotional empathy. The golden period that occurs is a driver to pursue the prime aims. The golden period that occurs with a normal or an empathic person isn't the driver of the prime aims, but rather the excitement of somebody new, the excitement of the potential that's held, driven by emotional empathy for that person. So it comes down to different drivers. Umama Sheikh, have you ever felt true sadness when losing an IPSS? No, I never experienced sadness. Eve L, has anyone ever been so angered by you they have attacked you physically? Yes, though it didn't go very well for them. In certain instances, I simply restrained them and ensured that they were then calmed down. In other instances, I have dealt with them and disincentivized them for their physical attack against me. The fact is, I'm a capable individual. The way that I've been trained, the way that I see people means that where they come at me with anger, I respond with a cold, hyper-focused reaction, which has benefited from my physical capability and the training that I've had, which means that they end up regretting such a move. Casi star de las Arboles. HG, what's the best way to engage with a lieutenant to a narcissist who's boss over both of us? The best way is to organize an audio consultation with me so that I can get more detail from you with regard to what's happening, the relative nature of the dynamic, and so forth, which will enable me to then advise you more fully. This is a very expensive question that's been asked and isn't really suited to a Q&A. So I would encourage you to organise an audio consultation so I can gain more detail from you and provide you with the expensive answer that your situation deserves. Milady Curtsy, thank you, HG. Are mid-range narcissists the ones you have least tolerance for? Indeed, they are. Those mealy-mouthed, shriveled-up, worn-up, bald, mid-range narcissists, I really cannot stand them. And the reason for it is that they hold themselves out as being decent people when they truly aren't. They're probably the greatest hypocrites amongst the narcissist brethren. As I've explained elsewhere, with lessers, some of them are so hapless it's hilarious. Upper lessers can actually be quite amusing in terms of the way that they behave, and at least they're kind of honest about their grandiosity and the vanity that they exhibit and so forth. Greaters are effective and therefore actually do things which are useful for the world and demonstrate a capability. They don't hold themselves out as being essentially kind and decent people, but rather as effective and superior individuals, which I say is fair enough. But with mid-rangers, they don't know what they are. They think that they're empathic. They think that they're kind and caring. And they come out with such utter word salad dross in the name of this supposed caring, when they're not at all. Katie Koo. HG, what's your favourite footwear? Brogues, loafers, ankle boots, wellies, or, heaven forbid, Crocs? Well, I can safely say it's not Crocs. I've never worn a pair. I simply do not understand what the purpose of those are. Although I did read recently that the film Idiocracy, which is a pretty decent film and is actually quite pretentious with regard to the way that the world is going, they wanted to, of course, come up with costumes for what people would be wearing in the future. And at the time, they didn't have a particularly large budget and they needed to get some shoes, get some footwear. And at the time, Crocs had only just started to hit the market. So they ended up causing everybody in the film to wear Crocs because they were not known, and furthermore, they were relatively inexpensive and within the budget for the film. Now, of course, if you watch it, you'll see, oh my goodness, look, they're wearing Crocs. But at the time, they didn't think they were necessarily going to go anywhere. Anyway, I don't wear them, never have, never will. And I noticed in the replies to Katie Koo's question that a number of you were very cheeky, suggesting that I would be wearing tube socks and sandals. I will track you down for that remark and administer a disincentivization that you require. I prefer to wear ankle boots or leather Oxford shoes when I'm about town. On other occasions, I may wear Timberland boots, and there'll be instances, of course, where I will wear trainers, sneakers to our transatlantic cousins, where I'm engaging in certain sporting activities. Big Blonde, now I have to know. Would you rather fight a duck-sized tiger or a tiger-sized duck? That got my attention. Well, I'm pleased that it did. And the answer is, I would fight a tiger-sized duck. The reason being, it'd be pretty easy to send it quackers, and once easily bested, then there'd be plenty to eat. Crispy duck. Ahoy. Lorraine Tredgett asks, I do ask what your actual daytime job is, if you have the time for one. I do. amongst all your very busy social scoundrings, if you may dispose with your honourable reply, well, this is one thing I'm not going to give you an answer to. I can't tell you what my daytime job is. It's not really appropriate to describe it as a daytime job because I have a number of professional interests, some of which are things that I do on my own, others I do link to certain organisations. I'm not specifically employed by anybody in a 9-to-5 job. I think you've probably worked that out by now, given the material that I provide to you. I essentially work for myself, but work in tandem for other individuals and with other individuals and organisations as and when is appropriate. Helena Handbasket, a very good name. HG, I want to thank you for all your superior videos. You're welcome. I've learned so much about people by watching your channel. My question is, do narcissists actually love their pets? If not, why do they have them? Well, there is a video that answers that question, so I can save my breath, but I wanted to highlight it because there are many of my videos that do answer questions, so I'd encourage you, alongside posing your question, to consider, particularly when it relates to narcissism, having a look through the many videos that I've created. As I've explained elsewhere, I repeat videos because often people didn't know about them in the first place, and it's useful for people to be exposed to the many excellent topics that I've spoken about with regard to narcissism and psychopathy. So, Helena Handbasket, the relevant video is, do narcissists love their animals or love animals? Watch that and you'll get your answers. My little buddy. What part does IQ level play in determining type of narcissist? Well, it is not the deciding factor, but it is a material factor with regard to the subschool of narcissist. Lower lessers are dimwits, likewise middle lesser. Upper lesser can be dimwits, but they can also be highly intelligent. So you see there that IQ is not determinative. There's a scale within the upper lesser A and upper lesser B. With lower mid-range, they're usually not that bright, not as dim as your lower lesser or middle lesser, but you sometimes can have very intelligent lower mid-range, or that is rarer. Middle range A and B can range from moderately intelligent to highly intelligent. Upper mid-range are more likely to be highly intelligent, but it's not always the case, but you're unlikely to find a dimwit as an upper mid-ranger. With graters, you'll find that they are of high intelligence, but not necessarily the highest intelligence. You could find an upper mid-ranger that's more intelligent than a greater. And of cleavers, many people who've had the misery of life with a narcissist end up at your door. Indeed they do. Whose door do your victims end up at, I wonder? Can't be yours, can it? Well, no, because I've kicked them out, got rid of them, disengaged from them. Some have ended up at death's door, as those of you who've accessed more of my material know. Some, I know, have ended up in the arms, metaphorically speaking, of therapists and doctors. Often they turn to family and friends to try and fathom out what it is that has happened and where it all went wrong. Aurelia C. Hi HG, you come across as a very witty person and a gifted storyteller. Thank you, you're not wrong. There is evidence here on your channel when you're chatting to your audience and through your real-life anecdotes, such as the ludicrous topics tactic, when you discuss meeting Harry's wife. My question is on humour and narcissists. Is it an emotion or learned behaviour? It's a learned behaviour. I'd encourage you to watch the video, The Narcissist and Humour. It's a learned behaviour, though some of us have a more evolved form of humour. There are instances, of course, where we observe the humour of other people, the way that people react to jokes, the jokes that are told, the situations that are seen as humorous, and we character trait acquire what we've seen so that we can use it ourselves and pass it off as our own joke, our own style of humour at another occasion. Certain narcissists have no sense of humour, and their learned humour is pretty piss poor. So it varies, but it doesn't come from a place of emotion, it comes from a place of learning. But some narcissists are more quick-witted than others and have a more evolved sense of humour because their style of narcissism has made it easier for them to learn the humour and deploy it far more effectively than others. Finally, grass is green enough. Hello, HG. Hello, Grass is Green Earth. Wondering if you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who that might be and what you'd want to discuss. I think I would plump for the Hitch, Christopher Hitchens. Many people say that I sound like him, which I take as a compliment. Of course, the Hitch is dead, and he's an individual that I'd never met, though I would very much have enjoyed having dinner with him, and then thereafter retiring to the study and having a discussion about the world as a whole. I wouldn't want to discuss one thing. I would want to discuss religion with him, the human condition, war. I'd discuss narcissism and psychopathy with him. I would discuss where the human race is going to. There's a whole range of things that I would like to discuss with him, as he's an articulate and amusing and clearly great company. So it would be the Hitch that I would choose. Well, that ends part 2 of the Q&A with HG Tudor. Do keep your questions coming in. Make sure you like this video, please. Just give the like button a tickle right now. If you've enjoyed it as well, you might want to issue super thanks to ensure that the Ultra's glorious tones, your chocolatey voiced narrator, remains able to talk to you and create these videos by ensuring the Dirts Fund is topped up with the super thanks. Pop your questions in the comments section and look out to see if yours is in the next part. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.